All right, welcome to this special episode of Friction Log, where we're actually not doing a friction log. It's just kind of a fireside chat with Copilot, GitHub Copilot. We have Santiago on, and thank you, Santiago, for joining.
Absolutely.
I've known Santiago for a while now. We work together at a company called Levitas, and he's an amazing engineer and amazing data scientist, and just an all-around real fun guy. And Cesar, Santiago's, because you haven't met Cesar yet. So Cesar and I work together also at another job. I just work with all these other people that come on. I don't know.
Yeah.
I work with Cesar at Accelerator. We were mobile engineers together and built some crazy apps. We traveled around a lot and
mostly to Delaware.
Delaware.
Mostly to Delaware.
we were working on the 21st century insurance app together, and we watched some terrible movies. Like Cesar's like, let's go watch a movie, and every time we did, it was just the worst movie. What was that one movie we watched, Cesar? It was the one with Will Smith.
Yeah, the one where he was in a planet with his son.
After Earth. I think it was called After Earth.
Yeah, something like that.
Worst movie ever. So
it wasn't the best movie. It wasn't our funnest afternoon. Was probably Guitar Center.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
We went to that, and then outside of that, it was just chain food. Which at that point I was still new to the US, so Rick was introducing me to all sorts of chain food that I'm not going to mention. But they were good.
I was like, Cesar, you haven't heard of Taco Bell? Let's go.
Oh, no. That I know. I know enough to not be nearby.
Oh, man, it's terrible.
Taco Bell to a Mexican. Yeah, I've heard that is not Mexican food. For sure. That's a disrespect.
It is.
The Mexican food, yeah.
I think we went to like Red Robin and things like that, Olive Garden and things like that. So it was chain food.
Welcome to America. We're going to all the terrible chain food.
But I do remember you introduced me to Arby's, Chick-fil-A. What else? Probably Olive Garden. Well, we do have Olive Garden in Mexico, so I don't know if that really counts. Red Robin. So yeah, there has been quite a while. I don't know which one I like more or less, but it's all food.
Yeah, it's funny. And then Santiago, we met here in Florida, and we worked together, worked in the same engineering group, caused some trouble together, and it was really fun. And then he made a switch to the data science side of the house when I was there at Levitas.
Yeah.
And man, did such cool stuff with some of the computer vision things. And then you're working on some really cool stuff now. It's all computer vision, right?
It's all computer vision, yeah. It's Python, computer vision. But that probably the best decision I made in my life to make that switch, man. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, really? Nice.
And you have a graduate degree, or you were working on a graduate degree at Georgia Tech, right?
I graduated already back in 2019.
Okay, so it's like 20 tech years ago.
Yeah,
like 20 tech years ago. It's already completely obsolete by this time. But yeah, yep. So it was Georgia Tech, machine learning. So that's what it was. So,
okay, nice, cool.
I mean, 20 tech years ago, that means you were doing machine learning with COBOL, right? Pascal.
Yeah, almost. I mean, I know you're kidding, but the classes that I got from the university have nothing to do with what I'm doing today. I mean, obviously, the fundamentals and the theory is still there,
right.
But like the actual tech, the libraries, the frameworks, like not even close. Like this so fast, especially in machine learning. There's so many people investing time, and creating awesome stuff. That 2 years is definitely a long time. Like if you sleep when you wake up tomorrow, like you lost 8 hours, man. And a lot happens there. I know we joke around, but it's almost literally like that bad. It's really, really fast. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like in the space, because we did some ML stuff at Pinpoint when I was at Pinpoint and some stuff, and just the difference between when I was at Levitas and the tooling, just the tooling around machine learning. Never mind machine learning, but the tooling around the data engineering pipeline stuff, it just changed so much in just a year. It's like all of a sudden Pachyderm comes and tries to solve this problem, and then this other thing pops up. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, if you think about it, it's software engineer side of the house. We have such amazing tools, right? We have GitHub, we have Visual Studio Code, we have so many tools.
Right.
That does not exist on the machine learning side of the house. Like, we are working on those right now. Every single day, a different company wants to tackle one of those tools. And there are many, many things that we have to do that there is no tooling at all. Yeah. Like, we're reinventing the wheel. Every single company is reinventing the wheel, right? So it's amazing to see. It's super fun to see how the field is growing, but it's also fast. Like, it is really, really fast.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick which ones are going to give you fundamentals for your career and which ones are just transitorial things that you just got to learn, right?
Yeah. You don't know. That's exactly. You don't know what's going to stay here in 1 year, you know? Like, I've been working with some APIs that are literally deprecated 3 months later. Like,
yeah.
You know, the other day, it was funny because I'm talking to a friend. The other day, I implemented an algorithm, had to type a lot of code for the algorithm. It was working perfectly fine. It was a neural network using triple loss. And a few weeks ago, TensorFlow released a library that completely renders my example obsolete. Like, it's a couple lines of code, boom, gone, better results. It's awesome. I mean, I really like it, but it tells you how quick this thing is moving. And yeah.
Well, one day you have GitHub, and the next day you have Copilot from GitHub, right? AI Power Editor, which is the main topic.
And Codespaces. Okay, Copilot is already old news.
Oh yes, Codespaces is available for everybody, and you can clone. Like, I was reading their announcement of like 14 gigs of the GitHub code base, and they can just run it on Codespaces.
It's amazing.
Like, wow. Yeah.
Like, I like how they're dog fooding that too.
Yeah,
because they're just hey, if you want to onboard,
if it's good for us, it's got to be good for you.
Yeah.
No, I really like it. I tried it out today. It's not complaint. Obviously, I haven't spent any time doing anything serious on it, but I did clone a repo today, played around, made a couple changes. It's VS Code. It's just in a browser. That's it. Right. I mean, I will have to put it through its paces. I will have to, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to run a Docker container and send requests to, I don't know, the stuff that I do on my computer. I don't know. But yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, I was just saying the same, right? Really easy exploration. And I saw that the people that use Emacs and Vim for code editing, they get access to, right? You can get SSH in, so you can pretty much do anything, I guess. It depends how limited the containers are, but they're not small, that's for sure. So it's going to be fast. Rick knows this, and I think he and I have tried this multiple times, trying to, back when travel was a thing, we were trying to use our iPads as primary computing devices, mostly with web IDs and stuff like that. It's not pretty. That is the ultimate thing for us, but Codespaces was the one that was the closest to that thing. So good.
Yeah, I wonder how. So I've tried it before. I was part of the beta program and all that. I've tried it and it was cool, but I haven't tried to dedicate time, like hide my VS Code icon and just do that. I haven't tried it yet. It'll be interesting because, like, now I'm at Fish Rolls full time, so I'm wearing every hat. From marketing to every hat in engineering to every hat, and so in a given day, I'm jumping from a mobile app, which needs Xcode or Android Studio or whatever, mobile app to a Node app to infrastructure to whatever. So I just wonder if I'll be able to use it because of that.
I mean, maybe a browser window for your Node app, and then the Android Studio for, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right. Unless you dedicate the time to unless you hide that Visual Studio Code icon and try it out, you're not gonna know.
At this point, you should probably have a container for each of your roles where you just execute a container and you have
great.
all the marketing tools.
I love
it.
So open the sales container.
Docker run sales, Docker run marketing, and you know what you're working with.
That's great. I love it.
That's pretty
just
cool.
Go buy a new Mac and don't install anything. Just open the browser and start doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to go.
Oh, so like buy the super fancy M chip, like when the M2 chip comes out, like, oh, it's so fast, I'm doing everything in a browser, so it doesn't matter, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would you pay for an M chip if you're doing everything in your Mac? At that point, just pay for like Chromebook. Those are,
right.
Like a $200 Chromebook with just a Chrome browser, and but that would be great. I mean, I think like what you said, Cesar, is right. Like having an iPad and being able to maybe not full-time working off of an iPad, even though that would be great, but at least live coding sessions from an iPad, that sounds great to me.
And the keyboard is great. It's just the interface with I guess WebKit is it's the software that it is the limitation. And even we try Codespace, or I was on the beta as well, and I tried a couple of times, and it was hard to load. I think it was still very early, so I gotta do it again. But that's exactly what I did. I went places and I didn't take my computer, and I have my iPad, and that forced me to try it out. Otherwise, it's just easier to have it on. And I think the other thing is the size of the screen. That was the other complaint.
Right.
Like, I can wire it to my monitor, which is not bad, but the aspect ratio is wrong, right? There is no other than video that projects to a TV or something like that. But like the mirroring thing, it keeps the old ratio or the same as the iPad. It's not good. Hopefully,
you know what, Cesar? I just thought of something. If you had to, I'm about to. Sorry, IBM. If you could run Data Power, API Connect in Codespaces, you wouldn't have to run the 100 gigabyte Docker file on your laptop. So it would free up resources.
I'm not gonna even ask.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah,
not too.
I know that
it scales and it serves a purpose, right? It's a secure gateway, like not a lot out there. So I don't want to talk bad about the product, right? But it is heavy. And I think you can run it on containers with one core, but it takes forever to launch. Like for development instances, you can do one core, and I think it's like 4 gigs of RAM, the virtual version. So it's getting there. There's a lot of work going on there, but that is not like run it from development. It's more like running it to use it to publish APIs and stuff like that. So it'll be just like a random container, which I don't know how Codespaces will react to that, right? I'm building APIs and I need to test it in a Data Power. How do I run that container? That would be interesting to know. But yeah,
it'd be interesting. But anyway, enough about that Microsoft product that was just announced. Let's talk about the one that was announced a couple weeks ago. It's not cool anymore. No, it's still cool. So Copilot, hopefully people listening have been paying attention to Copilot. But it's a super cool, for lack of a better term, I'm going to oversimplify it, the best autocomplete ever designed for VS Code. And it can actually take natural language as well and generate code. So it's natural language generation, natural code. Is that a thing? NCG, natural code generation?
No, you're just coining the term.
You're
like maybe 10,000 words. With 10,000 words more, you have a paper. You already have the name of the paper, which is
there we go.
That's the most important thing.
So,
words.
I can just go start knocking on doors of VCs. Somebody's going to fund me for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is the first. No one's ever done this before. Natural code generation, NCG.
Yeah.
Have you heard of NCG before?
And the more you use the acronym, the better, because less people are going to understand what it is.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. To be
No,
the
but
new buzz term.
I think the word autocomplete is probably the closest reference that we have to describe what Copilot does. I think that's so. It's a fair term, even though we might be. I mean, Copilot itself is not going to be happy that we're calling it like an autocomplete tool, but it's probably the closest, reference.
So let's look at the history of that, right? Autocomplete was probably what the keyboard on iOS, right? And then on the code side, you always have like on the Microsoft tooling, you had IntelliSense, that was the official name for the autocomplete.
Right.
And then iOS, but autocomplete by itself, it can mean that I'm just typing a text and it just gives me the full word, or it can mean that I'm using Gmail and it is completing my sentences, but it's taking it to the other level, which is what developers do. And to call it the same, those three things, it does seem like we're not doing justice to it, but there is no other word. Rick, you got to come up with another one.
Generate. It's code generation.
Code generation.
Right. Right. Generates code and uses your current context to understand or to propose what code is going to generate, which is really cool. It's not only the sentence, it's not only that line, it's actually your entire file that's using to decide what comes next. And that is where the magic happens.
It does feel magic. Like there's certain things when people, especially on the ML space, there's so many things that like they talk about it a certain way, and you dive into it and it's like, okay, this is gimmicky, or this is like snake oil. This is not any of that. Like actually, Cesar and I did that video. I don't know, like what 3 weeks ago, whenever it came out. A month ago, and there was like moments of wow. It was like whoa.
Yeah,
absolutely. Did that. It's amazing.
Yeah,
so
we
can add the word contextual code auto generator, I guess.
Yeah.
That would be, because it does take into account the context of the file, as you were saying, Santiago.
Cesar, you got to stay on brand. NCG. NCG. That's the buzzword.
Okay, I'll try to make an NFT out of your
there we go. Now we're talking.
And then we can make it a cryptocurrency, and then that will be it.
Yeah, we put it in the blockchain. Yeah, that's now we're talking.
Do you have your NCG on blockchain? I like that. Okay. Yeah.
No, I mean, Rick and I were talking about before starting the stream that it definitely has the wow factor. Okay, so that obviously it plays great in a demo, but it's not just that. Like, I drive a Tesla, okay, and there is this summon thing.
We all drive a Tesla.
We all drive a Tesla. There we go. So you know what the summon are, this techie people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have used it or the summon thing. It's super cool to show your friends, right? The car is parked somewhere. You push the button, the car makes it to where you are. Have you actually used it in real life? I don't know you. I have not. So that's one of those features that it shows really, really well.
Right.
Is it useful? I don't know. That is definitely not Copilot. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. I'm gonna give it that. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
But right now shows really well, but it's not necessarily useful. Copilot is definitely not in that category. Copilot shows really well, has that wow factor, but it's also number one is transparent, meaning you don't have to think about it. It sort of like blends together with your IDE, and it's just there helping you. It doesn't bother you a lot. Like, at least it doesn't bother me that sometimes it's trying to autocomplete, and I don't care about the proposal.
Right.
I don't have to do anything special about it. I just ignore it. But when it's right, it's one of those things that sometimes seems magic, and it does. Like, at least for me, it doesn't matter how many times it gets it wrong, because only the times that it gets it right are the ones that count. And those are the ones that leave the mark, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, it gets it wrong. Maybe it gets it wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's 1 out of 100 times that it gets it right. But that's the one that I'm going to stay with it, right? And that is super, super cool,
Yeah, it's like using your same comparison with Tesla, it's like the button to just pull it out when you have two cars that are blocking your doors, right? It's still a wow factor, and that one is useful. So I like that piece of it. So kind of like taking it to the same, but you're perfectly right? So you get it wrong, and you're like, it's actually interesting to know why it got it wrong. Like you kind of like want to reverse engineer that and understand the different options, and then you're like, oh, it's maybe because I use this word as opposed to this one, and that is something that as engineers it interests us to figure out like how things work. And this thing you can see it, as you said, it's transparent, it's open, you can see the different options that they have, and it is a wow thing. So it is useful. So I have a question for you guys. So you both have used Copilot, right? Yep. Was there any instance or any recommendation that you used that avoid the code to compile, like actually create an error on run time or compile time, whatever you were using?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I get the one that I get very frequently is an indentation problem, especially for Python. That is a big problem. It wouldn't be for JavaScript, but for Python it is. Like for some reason, sometimes I don't have the cursor where it needs to be, and Copilot wants to autocomplete right there, and it shouldn't, right? And sometimes, even though fewer times, when it autocompletes, it stars the line in the wrong column, right? So it might be right, but the line stars in the wrong column, so I have to fix that. That's a little bit annoying. Not a huge deal, but yeah. So definitely it will lead to what you're saying. It will lead to a compile error. My code wouldn't run. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I've seen it in JavaScript where, because it's trying to infer things based on the rest of your code base or what you've done just previously or whatever. So sometimes it'll try to infer, oh, you're trying to access this property or whatever. And sometimes it's just flat out wrong. It's like, no. This property doesn't exist on here. Like you think it does, but it doesn't. So it if I would have hit save, it would cause like a compile error or whatever.
Wait a second. Did you hit save? I'm honest.
No,
I have to hit save.
I'm like a Command S freak.
Okay, so but that's a different thing. So my hands do Command S all the time. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I know that I don't have to because I have it on autosave. Like my VS Code does the autosave thing, like completely. I don't have to think about it. I know my hands are doing the Command S, just I don't know, 20 years of doing the same thing. So they're doing that. Yeah. But it's just a placebo effect. It's just a thing that I do because I do, but it's not doing anything. So
when was the last time you guys lost any code? Right? Never.
Yeah, never.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't. The last time I can remember that made my day terrible was using Eclipse in 2011.
Jesus Christ.
I remember going through, because Eclipse has like that history panel, and somehow like versions and it nuked the whole thing, messed up.
By the way, just a few months ago, I used Eclipse. It looks exactly the same. Like it was a thing about not use. I didn't use it. Okay, I'm gonna restate that.
Yeah.
I had to open Eclipse. It looks exactly the same as I remember it from the early 2000s. So exactly the same. I don't know how many updates. I remember back in the day they used to update Eclipse like very frequently. Like every month or so you got like a new version. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but visually is Eclipse. It's the same thing.
So funny story about that. At Accelerator, we acquired a company called Aptana, which was like you remember this SR. So this was like the JavaScript version of. I mean, not. JavaScript support in Eclipse, and it had a bunch of other stuff. Aptana back in the day did some really cool stuff. They actually had Jaxer, which was basically Node.js before Node.js. So they had a lot of cool stuff. But I remember Ingo, who worked. He was the VP of engineering at one point at Accelerator. He was on that team when we acquired them, and we were talking about customizing Eclipse and why does Eclipse look so ugly, and can we change the colors? And I remember him saying, "Well, there's only like 3 people in the world that know how to do that." And I'm like, "Oh, is that why?" I'm like, "It's open source." Wow. Yeah, it's that bad. It's that hard, I guess, to work on. So
yeah.
And I have seen different flavors of it, but you can tell as you're saying, Santiago, you open it, and because we have a toolkit at IBM that you open it and you're like, oh, this is Eclipse.
This is Eclipse, yeah.
Like, I don't have to use it, but I had to open it, as you said, and it's like, oh yeah, this is, and then the little progress bar that says starting something, and you're like, yep, this is 100% Eclipse.
That's the one.
Even when I was a Java developer, I never liked it. I think I used IntelliJ back in the day, and I used NetBeans because we were doing a lot of like what was it called, like Swing, Java Swing, or like the UI elements. So NetBeans was fairly decent, and I always like it better than NetBeans. Now, if I open it, which I had to maybe a year ago, and it is it's like night and day. It's like going back to the cave times.
What are you doing at IBM right now? JavaScript?
I'm mainly working on deployments, so a lot of containers, a lot of YAMLs, which I could use Visual Studio, which I don't like YAMLs, but it is what it is. A lot of Ansible.
YAML cowboy.
No.
YAML cowboy.
No. Yeah, it's not bad. I get it. It's like you were saying about Python. The issue is the different indentation that you have to use is what kills you. But it's mostly like Kubernetes objects, and then most of the IBM tooling, right, for API management and Kafka and stuff like that. But even if I have to connect to a Kafka node, I'll go through a Node.js application, right? I will stay away from the Java side. I think I haven't done formally Java since I built a system, a point of sale system for my dad, and every like few years there are changes on the electronic invoice system in Mexico, and I got to do some changes there. So I touch it every like 2-3 years, and it's just a here and there thing, but that's about it. That's the history.
So it's interesting. I know this sounds like a rabbit trail, but it's got me thinking about, everything in technology and advancing in technology is building on different foundations, building on a foundation. And science is that way too, right? You have this discovery, but it's based on all this other stuff. And so like with Copilot, it's so good, but even on the editor side, all of the different things that it's built on, principle wise, foundational wise, like we got to VS Code, and now we are doing Copilot. Not to say you can't do this in another IDE, obviously, because it's that OpenAI API that we can hit and stuff like that. But it just works so well in VS Code because of all the work that's been done to VS Code to be so good. It's such a good editor.
By the way, they are integrating it on IDEA, which is the
makes sense.
JetBrains, and Vim is the other one that they're working on to integrate Copilot with those.
Yeah, it makes sense for them to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Copilot is mainly, the core language is Python, even though it supports JavaScript and all of the other ones. They promote it as Python first, and IDEA is obviously a Python. It's the other big one in the industry.
PyCharm.
So that's interesting because Visual Studio Code comes from Microsoft, where GitHub was its own company. And I think when Microsoft bought GitHub, actually GitHub got Visual Studio Code, and they were able to move it into Codespaces and integrate with all these tools. And now it's it has the Edge development tools kind of like built in, because now they're making a big push with Edge now that it is, I would say, close to what Chrome is giving us. I know, Rick, you're a fan of Chrome. I'm a Edge guy now. I think I have been using it for a year now. So it is how that merge is happening. I think it's great for us developers, where when you would think about Microsoft, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, you were just thinking about Visual Studio and this big, that was night and day, right?
That's a relationship it's beautiful. If you think about it, you think OpenAI, GitHub, Microsoft, okay, everyone here is doing something to make Copilot possible. So OpenAI, it's putting forward their research on machine learning, okay? Microsoft is putting forward Visual Studio Code. And Azure, the cloud to train those humongous models that OpenAI is using. Yeah. GitHub is putting the knowledge, right? All of the training data. Like, remove one piece from the equation and Copilot does not exist. There's no way for like Google cannot create Copilot, at least not as, without GitHub, Google doesn't have Copilot, you know? Yeah. Like any other big company right now, I don't think they can create what these two companies technically, but three if you count GitHub and Microsoft apart, but they did. It's a match made in heaven. It's great.
I totally agree. And it's also amazing how well that acquisition to integrating with all this stuff went. Because you know, usually these types of things, big company like a Microsoft acquires a software company and it just kind of fumbles around. But this was just like they hit the ground running, and it's amazing.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Cesar, you didn't hear this funny story. So Santiago, why don't you tell Cesar how you got the invite to Copilot?
Yeah. So, you know, I've been waiting for like 3 weeks. Like Rick is teasing Copilot, and you know, you cannot go online without hearing about Copilot. And I'm in the waiting list and nothing is happening. So, you know, I get, you know, impatient. So I post this tweet saying, hey, if you know somebody that can give me access to Copilot, I promise that I'm going to kill one of your enemies, or something funny like that, right? So a random dude, his name is Nat Friedman, so he messages me, and he says, I didn't. So he messages me and he says, hey, I gave you access, you're going to get an email, yada, yada. Like, you know, dude probably knows somebody that knows somebody. I Googled him, like, holy smoly, this is GitHub CEO. So he was the one. So he hooked me up, and so I signed up. That was probably 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah, that was.
So fun. That's like 2 years, 2 tech years back.
Yeah,
tech
years back.
I thought that he was gonna come through Mauro, which you know, Rick, because Mauro and Miguel de Casa are friends. So that's another thread to pull to figure out. So cool. That's good that you got the invite, the special invite.
The special invite, yeah. So I started using it, and again, you know, obviously first day using Copilot, it's all about, you know, no file. Let me play around, right? Mm-hmm. Let me start generating stuff that I know. Okay, so that's great. Again, a great demo. But then I have to do some work, right? I have to start like focusing on my work, forget about Copilot. And that's where you start appreciating the little things. So number one thing that I realized is how much code that is boilerplate you have to type every single day. Stuff that you don't even think about. Like one example is you create in Python specifically, you create a constructor or an init method, right? And you pass some arguments to that method, and then you have to create, you know, self.variable equals the argument. Right. And you have to do that for 10 different arguments. So all of that Copilot, boom, just like this, it just completely removes it from your plate, because it's going to auto-complete all of that. It's going to definitely propose that you fill that out. One tap, boom, all of it is done. That's the type of stuff that you do every single day. The little things, again, the ones that you don't put in any demo because nobody's going to be impressed about that.
Yeah, right.
But the ones that save you the 10 seconds here, the 2 seconds there, those are the ones that keep adding up. And when you end up your day, you are like, wow, all of this stuff did for me.
Yep.
Hence the name Copilot, right? It's not the pilot. Yeah. It's not supposed to build everything for you. You're not supposed to, hey, build me a module that does this, and that. It's like, help me build stuff and help me focus on what's important. So I think that they nailed
It's a
the
great name. Yeah, it's a great
it's
name.
like,
Let me
it's a
flip
great
these
name for
switches
Copilot.
for you. Yeah, it's so true.
Mhm.
And the other thing too, Sister, we were talking about this before the call, Santiago and I, but one of the awesome things about technology, really good technology, is when it's invisible, when it's just doing stuff and you just kind of forget it's there. And that's what Copilot is. You're just coding along and it's doing autocomplete and doing all this stuff. And after a while, the last couple of days, I kind of step back. I'm like, oh wait, Copilot did this. Duh. That's awesome. It's not like it would be bad if it was some UX where as you're coding and then this like pop up comes up, it takes you out of the flow, and then you're like Copilot, big branded thing, and then you're like, which one do you want to use? No, it's just like it almost doesn't exist. You don't even see it, and it's doing all this stuff. It's awesome.
There is no key combination to activate, or I didn't remember what is like Command Option P K. Nothing. It's just working for you. Right?
You have your little printout of all the shortcuts that you're gonna use, and you're like, no,
it's not there. Right? You don't have to learn how to use it. It's just there, and it's helping you. Right? So I've had many conversations about Copilot, obviously, especially when it was released. The first question is, okay, so is it gonna introduce more bugs in your code? Is it gonna be like people are gonna trust Copilot? Now Copilot is gonna break things and whatnot, right? So number one, so here is the main thing that's doing for me. Okay, so besides what I just mentioned, which is just the small things, I do work with a lot, and Levitas work obviously doing the machine learning and doing computer vision and whatnot. We do work with libraries like NumPy and Matplotlib and Pandas. Those have a weird syntax, all of them. A bunch of super powerful libraries, but anything that's super powerful is also complex to use, obviously.
Right.
So I use every single day, I use things that I forget what the syntax is, right? So I have a second brain to just Google the syntax, copy, paste, that's it.
Right.
That is gone from my life. So now it will be interesting to see queries for Stack Overflow for people that are using Copilot. If you could see
that's so interesting.
Metrics,
metrics, right?
That is so interesting.
Because that's where I find this stuff. Like I use that every day, not only to find how do I do it, it's just things that I know how to do, but I don't remember the syntax.
Right.
It's like, tarring a file on your, like, who remembers like -XFV whatever, right? Like nobody. Like you go in how to tar a file, just copy the command and paste it, right? So that stuff I do every day, and now I don't have to Google it anymore. So it's open a browser, type your query, find the right result that is usually already highlighted on my browser because I've opened it before, go there, scroll down, copy, paste, right? Fix because usually you're doing it with a different variable name. Paste and fix that.
Right, it's in a different context.
Now that's gone because now I say, I want to do this. And Copilot knows exactly, it knows the variables that I'm using. So it applies the same syntax on my variables, on my context, and I don't have to leave my IDE. And that is extremely, again, this is not the sexy thing. Let me generate 27 lines of code or 107 lines of code for you. Yeah. This is just a line, but it's a line that it takes me 45 seconds that now is down to 3 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Repeat that across the day and you see the actual power of the tool.
Right.
Yeah, I like it. So, which brings us to our main topic tonight, right? So we have both of you guys that have access to Copilot. Santiago, you have a lot of experience with Python, a lot of advanced things. You're picking the small things that Copilot is giving you, and it's giving you a lot of productivity. On the other side, we have Rick, which put himself into the task of learning Python using Copilot, right? And we want to talk about that. So I was on the first video with Rick, and we were trying some things out on Copilot, and then he went ahead and said, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to figure out like the basics of Python, and then we should get an expert and talk about like, did I learn what I learned right? or what are the things that are missing? And we kind of like knew at the beginning that it was a lot of functions and it was a lot of snippets and stuff like that. Obviously, Copilot is not going to structure your application. Your application has to be structured by an engineer. And but for somebody that it is totally strange to Copilot, this is great, right? So or to Python in this case, sorry. Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit about your a short summary of the videos? And I know we're going to have links to all of them and stuff like that. But what was your process, right, on learning Python?
Yeah. So my approach was, so the question was, can I learn a language, the basics of a language, just using Copilot? Not Googling, not going to Stack Overflow, not going to read any kind of docs, like literally just using Copilot. Now, obviously, there's assumptions in there. This first assumption is I know how to program. The person knows how to program, because you can't just go do this stuff and learn. So
it has to be about the syntax. It has to be about
exactly.
Like you know how to construct a program, but the syntax you don't know about the language.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of the question. Can I just do that? And so I did like 5 videos, I think. I don't know how long, like 45 minutes long or something like that each. And I got pretty far. Actually, can I share my screen? Let's see here. Let me see. Share screen. Is it gonna do? Oh, it's not gonna let me pick a. Hold on.
Like a partial side of your screen.
Oh, here we go. Window. Here we go. Let's just do that.
There we go.
Nice.
I'll blow it up a little bit. Is that readable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what I did is I went to Code Academy, and I just looked at their outline for learning Python, which after looking back, actually, I think it was on their Python 2 curriculum or something, but whatever, it doesn't matter. What the point was, using the topics, strings, and then controls, and then functions, and all that. So I kind of use that as the outline, if you will, for me. So I have like these are kind of represent different things that are from that syllabus. So the first one it was just syntax. Like, how far can I get with syntax? And everything you see up here is, and by the way, there's a GitHub link with all of these files. Is the natural language of me just saying to do that, and then it would do it. So I got pretty far. I don't know. Here's the one thing I learned from this experiment is there's no way for me knowing if something's right or not unless there's a compile issue. There's no way for me to go check, is this actually the right way to do it?
Right. Like, I'm just looking at interpolated string. Do you mind? Let's run an experiment under line 12 there.
Yeah.
So type maybe interpolated string with a variable using an f dash string.
Using an f.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah, that's it. But see, you need to know what an f string is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the sort of like the modern way to put together variables within a string. You've seen something like this in JavaScript as well, but the name is f strings. But yeah, so I like that much better than the previous line, like line 12. Obviously.
So what is it? That's called a template literal, I think, in JavaScript, or there's another word for it. I can't remember. Yeah. So like, okay, JavaScript, I know what that's called in JavaScript, but there's no way in the world I would have ever known that was called f string.
Right.
Like, could I do like interpolate string with a variable using a template literal?
Oh, there we go. But that's another way that you can do it in Python. So that's also correct. And I've seen a lot of people using it like that. I personally don't like it. It's not readable for me.
No, this is way more readable.
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay. But anyway, yeah. So there's certain things like that. F string's a perfect illustration. What I'm saying was, there's no way for me to know what that is without reading docs.
Yeah.
Or being exposed to it. You can't learn that, I don't think, using Copilot. I will, let me caveat. unless it went ahead and did this anyway for me. And so there's an example of that. Like I have no stinking idea what this is doing.
But that's one of those things that are, the tricks of Python, like reversing a string. There's no way you're gonna know whether that's right or not, because it's hard for me to read that. By the way, it's hard.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting though is, so this kind of blew my mind. I'm like, what in the world is going on?
And you tried, and it literally did what it says it did, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
It is super cool. Yeah.
Somewhere, I don't remember where it is. It's in the video actually. I started playing like, well, what if I put a 1 here? What does it do? Or what if I put a 1? And it's like I started to kind of figure out what it was doing.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I just would have read it doc somewhere, it would have been way faster. But I got to say, without knowing anything really much about Python, it's kind of a cool feature.
It is, yeah. So slicing, it's called slicing. Okay. And it's one of the things that makes Python super, super cool, that you can get either from a string or from a list. You can get any slice of that array very, very simple, right? If there is a special sort of like a nomenclature or syntax that you can use just to get, hey, give me from the second character to the third character with a step of 2, right? And you can get that like very, very simple.
So is that saying that since you don't have anything before the first column, it says since the beginning, and then in between the 2 columns, it says to the end, and then you have a step, as you said, and it is a -1, which is like just recursive? Is that what it means?
That's what it is. Yep.
Okay.
It's actually really cool. Like when I was playing around with it and I was figuring out what it was doing, I'm like, oh wow, I kind of wish I had this in JavaScript. Because it's very verbose in JavaScript to do that.
So let's try another one under line 36. It's like print last character of greeting, something like that. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
But basically here I'm saying, hey, just get the -1 character, which is it start from the back, right?
The first one is starting from the back. That makes sense. Yeah.
Now, okay, so let's try this. Print greeting. How do we say, I want to print greeting without the first and the last character?
Just like that.
Without the last character and first
character.
Yeah, let's try that. That is not correct.
Well, let's see here. Let's see. Let's just do this without the last character. Yeah, it's.
So that is correct.
And without the first character.
It's funny that why pick 3? That's an interesting. Did you notice that? Did you see that?
Right, because Copilot is also auto-completing what you're like the natural language, which is super interesting as well. So that is fine, right?
I just think it's funny that it like without.
Okay, change your syntax to without the first and last character.
Last character, right?
There we go.
There we go. So sometimes you'll have to play a little bit with your prompt in order.
You got to learn English to use Copilot.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the funny thing about that is, so when I lived in Peru, I would the language school that I went to, they had the guy that ran that school, he had an SEO and web business that he also ran, and it was attached to the language school. So I would go over there and I would teach the developers stuff like in between classes or after class. And so one day it occurred to me where I'm teaching, and it's like half the words I'm using are English. And I just stopped. I'm like, guys, can I just talk in English? Because half the words I'm using are programming terms. It's just English. It's like da-da-da-da variable, da-da-da-da-da this constant, da-da-da-da. I'm like, Anyway, so
interesting. By the way, you are only using Copilot. Like, let's try this. Like under line 42, maybe. Let's start a function, okay, and let's name the function with what we want to do. So no. Without typing a comment, just start a function, which is def. Right. That's how you start a function. And now let's do print _ greeting without There we go. Print greeting without the first and last characters. Just type that as the name of the function.
Oh, right. I got you. Without.
Or first character. Yeah, there we go.
First
See?
and last. There you
So
go.
it also uses the name of your function to do, let's try this.
Mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. Yeah, let's try def sort characters in string or something like that. There we go. That's it. That's it. It's doing it.
And then also it'll describe it, right? So like you can say, what does print greeting with effort do? Uh-oh. It's not working. No, have you seen it? Have you seen where it actually explains it? Yeah. So somebody was demoing. I saw this on Twitter yesterday, and it wasn't TensorFlow. It was something with data frames, and it was just like, what is this thing doing? And it actually explained. I think it's in one of the Codex examples. Now that I think about it, it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, wouldn't it be great that you just type like, "Hey, I don't know, hashtag teach me basics of Python," and see what it does? like you were going, but why? All right, so teach my Python.
Teach my Python. Yeah, it's whatever. It's just spitting out what I did above. That's great. I'm just going to show you what you did. How about that? Stupid human.
That's how you learn, human.
Oh man.
Cool. Okay.
All right. So anyway, so I got pretty far with just basic syntax. I think through this, it made a lot of sense.
String. Yeah. If else statement.
Yeah.
If else statement. There we go. Check if type is a number.
Right.
Nice. Yep.
Now, one thing I think I did this in the video too. Does Python not have a switch statement?
No.
Okay. So I was trying that. I'm like, make a switch statement for my string, that kind of thing, and it was like.
It's
not
completely lost.
Doing anything. Which is an interesting thought. Is can you borrow concepts? How do you associate concepts from another language? And should you even shoehorn them in here? Like when you write a switch statement, however, surely you do something in Python that I don't know if it's just a long if else or if it's like you stuff it in a object, and then I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to do it. Anyway, just a thought that would be a curious experiment.
By the way, Python includes or is including something that's called pattern matching. It's way different than a switch statement, but you can also use it as a switch statement. Super powerful. Like you can do, look it up. You can do some like a lot of crazy stuff with pattern matching, but it's including that in, I think it's 3.10. That's the version of Python where that's going to get released. No, it's not that. No, it doesn't have. There's no code in GitHub. There's no way OpenAI's got access to training data for that yet. But yeah, it's super cool, but it's not released yet. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a real use case though, because go to a JavaScript file and say, hey, do an F string. Like we were talking about like a few minutes ago, it's probably not going to work, right? It makes sense, but there's not a lot of cross-learning of languages, I would say. Or at least not a lot of people using Copilot like you are, Rick. So I see it a little bit hard, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's one of those like abstract concepts of shared knowledge, and at some point, does everything converge? When does it start converging? It's more of an abstract kind of a curiosity more than a practical one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, it did a pretty good job, and then I jumped over to like controls, and it's all kind of the same stuff. Now this is something I don't know. So I know what decorators are in other languages. I don't know what they are in Python, but there was a a whole lesson in Code Academy about decorators. Again,
Right.
all I saw was decorators on the syllabus. I didn't jump into it. I didn't Google it. So I tried my best to like try to figure out how a generator or no, a decorator works. And it was like creating these generator functions. And again, like I know how that stuff works in JavaScript. I know how that stuff works in other languages, but I could not figure out decorators with Copilot.
Yeah, great question. A decorator is a function, like everything in Python is a function. So you can apply a function to a function.
Right.
So you can imagine the way it will work is before starting the function, decorator is going to get called, and now you can instrument that function. Like you can do stuff before the function runs or after the function runs, or you can even modify the syntax of that function. That's what a decorator is. So why is it useful? Probably for the same thing that they're useful in JavaScript. Like you can, there is an entire cache. Like let's try this. Let's try this out.
Right.
Let's create a function. Just type a function, def, whatever. And so how do we do this? Okay, so we have to give it a prompt. Okay, we have to give it a prompt. Let's say create a function using LRU cache, space cache. LRU space cache. Let's see what that does. Okay.
Oh.
Didn't do anything.
Using a decorator.
Well, yeah.
do that, Copilot.
Just do something, Copilot. Do something, Copilot. Yeah. So let's give it more. Let's say create a function that returns a list of numbers using the LRU cache decorator. Yeah. Well, that's fine. Let's see what it does. Sure. It doesn't want to do anything now.
Well, here, let's do this. Let's go back to LRU cache.
So, you know what? So remember, so this is something that we have to remember. So somehow Copilot is using the entire context of our file. So I wouldn't be surprised if all of the crap that you have in here is completely throwing it off, right?
Right.
So yeah, there we go. So let's start easy. Create a function that returns a list of numbers. Just give it that prompt, and it should definitely do something. It is not doing something. So something is going on. There is absolutely no way that it doesn't know how to do that.
What did it say? List numbers? Is that what we said?
Sure.
Here we go.
Okay.
There's that tab issue. I run into this a lot.
You got the tab issue as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is okay.
So I have to do open, and then I have to accept the solution, and then it'll work. That happens a lot.
Interesting.
You gotta.
So it didn't. It didn't do. So try a function that lists number from 1 to 100 and uses the LRU cache. Yeah, something like that. There we go. Now we're talking.
Okay, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So this is what I would have expected, and I just could not. I'm going to go all the way back. Sorry, to my original file. I could not get that. I tried a million different ways. It's actually it probably doesn't even show it in here, but that makes sense. If it would have just done one of those, I would have
like, oh, I know what they are.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what a decorator is. It's not different than probably JavaScript or any other language. Like attributes. Who call them attributes? Java? Annotations.
Annotations.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? I think attributes rings a bell for me, but I don't know. Maybe not. No, annotations is fine.
Right.
Annotations, decorators. Yeah.
How do you call them in C#?
I don't think we have somebody from C#.
I have not done C# ever. I think it's attributes. I have to Google it. Let me Google
Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised.
C# attributes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are, let me see before I say yes, they are. So DLLs. Oh, Jesus Christ. DLL. My gosh.
So another one that it both in the video you'll see it. I struggle with it. On one side, it's amazing. On another side, it just didn't do what I was trying to. I was trying to get it to create a class. So I finally got it. You can see here, like this is the class it created. It actually explains it. And there's your init. There's what you were talking about before about the constructor and then assigning the member properties and stuff. And it was really cool. Like it actually generated read odometer, and then it actually had a read odometer, update odometer. And I was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, a lot of code there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I told it to create an instance of the car, and it has a bias towards Audis, which I think is interesting.
Oh.
Right.
It has a good taste.
Yeah. It likes Audis. So anyway, it worked pretty well. But there were times when it wasn't like I was trying to explore like the object-oriented programming paradigms and stuff in Python. Can it do this? Does Python do that? And I don't remember exactly. It's on the video. I don't remember exactly what it is, but I couldn't figure it out. And I think that just goes back to language-specific naming conventions and how things are handled.
Let's try this. Let's try create a truck class that inherits from car.
So I tried this and I could not get it. Okay, actually, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
All right,
there we go. So it's using the same attributes that we have on car, right? It's using the exactly make, model, year. And now it's just spitting out
battery size.
Yeah. Thank you, random developer that did this in GitHub somewhere.
You gotta love it.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny.
It's a drum compiler now.
So it's funny. I was trying to do this, and it wasn't doing it when I was trying to do it before. So that's interesting. That's working now. And also, again, because I'm ignorant of Python, I was expecting like car or truck extends car or something like that. Right. This is actually kind of nice. It makes it feel a little more functional.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try this other one. Let's try create a boat. This one makes sense, but create a boat class that inherits from car and truck. Yeah,
nice.
It knows what it's doing. Okay, so all right. So let's make it hard. Let's create another attribute though, for truck that doesn't exist in car.
Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe we have make, model, year. Let's add color to the init.
Great color attribute. Let's just see if it does it. All right, good.
Right. But let's add it to the init though. The line 42.
Gotcha. So here we're gonna say color.
Color. Right. And now let's create the boat class. So forget like remove everything from line 54 below.
Yep.
Let's remove that. And let's create boat. Right. Let's do that. And let's see what the init does. Oh, that's interesting. But before it told us to it tried to autocomplete the init, right?
But with the natural language generation, but from this it's not doing it. So let's do that. Let's do create.
Let's start right. Let's start from Keep going.
In the world. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that. Okay, so let me see. All right, so it's calling super.
It picked a different color.
Color. Look at that. Now that's interesting. I don't think this is. By the way, I've never in my life used multiple inheritance, so I don't even know if this is gonna work. Like I literally don't know. So we just need to try because it's doing super empty init. So is that the car? Is it the truck?
Is the truck? Yeah.
Right. I think you have to specify.
That's a good question.
Right. I don't know. If it's the truck, it's definitely not going to work because the truck needs the color. And here is not providing the color.
Oh, there you go. This one thinks it's the truck. Huh.
So this is what I would do. Just let's try to create an instance of a boat. and let's run it and see what happens. All right. But see, now here the boat obviously is passing the red color because it needs it. It's so cool. I mean, just stop here for a second.
Yeah,
Think about it, okay?
that's pretty
about
interesting.
This. Let's think about this just for a second. All right. So he's picking a name of a make for obviously a car, but it's, even though this is called a boat,
right?
So it's saying Honda, a CRV, which is the model.
Yeah,
it's picking a year and it's picking a color for us. So it's doing that example. It's creating an example that does make sense, which is really cool. All right, so let's run this.
Wait, hold on, I gotta see this of
truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's a real truck. I don't know why it's always going to 2016 though.
It was the year that this model was born.
It's got a thing for the year. All right, so let's try to run this.
All right, so let me. Hopefully this stuff won't mess things up. All right, let's just try it. So what do I do? Just do run?
Yeah, you just open
run
the terminal.
Python and terminal.
Just open the terminal and type Python space. Whatever the name
it
of the
ran.
file is.
So traceback. 954.
Okay. 954. All right.
That makes sense.
Create a consistent method resolution. Of course not. That makes sense because we're saying just super. All right. So type super and type car inside super. I don't remember the syntax, but try to type car
in here.
Not there in the boat.
In the other one, where you gonna pick between?
Okay, so type car here.
There. I'm like somebody that's watching this that knows how to do this is gonna scream at me. No, without that.
Just
without
like that. Literally, you're just passing.
Just that literally like that. Maybe it might be super. Doesn't work.
Doesn't look like it.
Create a consistent. No. Jesus, we're gonna have to Google this. No, we should not Google this. All right, so let's try. let's get. Okay, so now that's better. Try that. Cannot create a consistent method resolution. Interesting.
So I don't know Python, but it's weird to me that you would call super and then this weird. I don't know.
So that is the way. That is the way.
This is the way. If this feels like some private way that's like danger, don't call things this way.
No, that's the way that you do it. Yeah. But what's interesting is, okay, so here, all right, let me think about this. So boat inherits from both car and truck. But truck also inherits from car, which is super crazy. So that might be what's happening here. Okay. So truck should not inherit from car. Or at least let's create a separate class. Let's do this. Let's do this. Create a separate class above boat. That's, I don't know, a shape class, whatever. Create great. That's awesome. Yeah, it's gonna do the whole shebang if you let it. Okay, so let's take let's replace a truck on line 61. Let's replace truck with shape. All right, so it will be cool to auto-generate the init now and see what happens. So create a boat class that inherits from car and shape, maybe. Okay. Do more.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, look at that.
Wow.
All right, so now,
look at that.
Look at that. All right, so now it's doing the super init make model year. That's supposedly going to car, and then it's doing shape that init supposedly is going to shape.
But
all right, so I don't even know
why did it took color. Color is something specific that we added for truck, not for car and not for shape. So the make model year belongs to the car, and then the color was something for truck, and then length and width is or X and Y are
because Cesar, boats have colors.
It completely added the color there. That is not here.
It does know that it like most of the boats are white, so that's that seems.
I like how it decides to say, "Hey, I'm going to add you a list, a dictionary, a set, and a tuple."
for no reason whatsoever.
Boat, ship, yacht,
All right, so
aircraft.
just create an instance of the boat class. Yeah, it's passing all of that. Great. It's yeah. And does it run now? It did. It did.
Yeah, it ran. I'm not
Yeah.
printing
It ran.
anything out
Okay.
at the bottom, so it compiled. Yep.
Um, HAFS, is that a boat brand?
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
Let me Google that.
No idea what that is. JFS.
So, but again, I tried to figure this out before, and I just couldn't figure it out. I actually almost was wondering if there was even a way to extend things.
Yeah.
This is interesting, though.
That is, yeah, and it's ugly as hell.
It really is.
Yeah. By the way, again, I don't know. I don't even know what is a valid case of. I barely inherit from different classes. I don't even know if there is a valid case for multiple inheritance. I hate it. Never use it. So yeah, I hope there is a better way to to call the super init method of two different classes that it doesn't look like 64 and 65, because that's horrible. I mean, I know 64 is the way you do it. I don't know if first time that I see 65. Yeah, that was horrible.
You know, you should probably build a script that does exactly the same instructions with Copilot every week, and you can see how it's evolving. Because you were saying, "Oh, this is different than what I saw." So I guess it keeps evolving, and it keeps you getting you new new options.
A good question. How often do they do that? Is the question.
I don't know, man. So here's the thing: if they have to retrain the whole thing, I can assure you it's not evolving. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the GPT-3 model, how much does that cost to train?
It's like 20 million.
Yeah, it's psycho crazy. So, and this is built on top of that, right? So
this is right. So this is using similar tech. So now, that being said, though, that is a full training round. So they might not need to do that. They might just be fine-tuning the model by, it's like you can get GPT-3 and you can fine-tune it to a specific use case. So they might do something like that just to make it better with the new data that they're getting. They don't have to retrain everything from the beginning. Now, I don't know if that's what they're doing right now. I don't know if they're even collecting information from developers. I don't know. We'll probably have to read the fine print to see what they're doing.
Right.
I don't think. I mean, think about it for a second, right? Are you going to be using Copilot if Copilot is feeding back your code to the cloud? Yeah. I don't know. Probably not, right?
Probably not.
Now, do they need to feed code back to the cloud, or do they need to feed accepted, not accepted? Like basically sort of like with this prompt, this was my solution. They did not accept this solution. They pick maybe this other solution, right? So that's another feedback loop that's also interesting, that you can is also useful, but it doesn't leak your actual code, right? Back, like it's not fitting. Hey, they corrected my suggestion this way. That would be feeding your code back to the cloud. So I don't know what they're doing.
The third one would be if all the code that it is being pushed to GitHub is being used somehow to give feedback to Copilot, right? Because every day there's a ton of code going in. So it's my code, my decisions, and then the rest of the world pushing code. So yeah, it will be interesting to know how they are improving it and how often.
Yeah. So this is Rick and I were talking about this already, but we were sort of like speculating about what is these three companies play to make money off of this, right? So they're not doing this just because they're good of their hearts, right? They're going to be making money off of it. So I think what seems to be a great idea is a Copilot that's being trained on what you care about. Like, number one, let's talk about big companies. You go to Google, they have tons of code, or IBM, you guys have tons of code that it's just specific for you, right? It's your code base, it's private, it's not anywhere. Now imagine a version of Copilot that's just for you
towards
trained on
your
code.
GitHub Enterprise instance. Yeah,
That is correct.
that could be something. I do think that it is going to be along the lines of Codespaces, though. I think Codespaces was basically released for anybody that it is paying either a Teams or an enterprise kind of account, right? So maybe it's going to be some sort of add-on or maybe built into somebody that it is already paying for GitHub. I do see it more towards that. And then, of course, if you have your GitHub Enterprise instance, then you might enable it for everybody, and they're going to charge you a lot for that. Other than that, I don't know. I haven't seen. I thought the same about Codespaces. Oh, are you going to charge me for a virtual instance in Azure every time I'm going to use it once it was out of beta? And they didn't come up with that. The idea was you're already paying GitHub, so you're going to get this for free. I assume it's going to be the same. That's my bet, at least. We will see. We will see if it works.
So here's the interesting thing about it is this isn't something that you can just spin up, open source thing over here, install this plugin, and you'll use this other model over here, not this one. And so my point is, imagine a generation of coders that grow up with this, and again, it's invisible enough to where you kind of forget it's there. So you just yeah, of course VS Code helps me code, and then as a generation that grows up with this, you can't go without it. And again, there's not going to be an open source version of this, right? I mean, how is that even going to be possible?
And it's not. It's not possible.
It's not possible. Yeah. So
it's not possible.
So it's like you are literally owning the developer ecosystem. Like, growing up with this, who's going to want to leave it? That's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's I go back to cars, right, and how cars have spoiled us in a way that there are certain features of a car that you cannot. Like, there is a generation that learn how to drive with those features that cannot see themselves driving without them, right? And right now, obviously the Tesla autopilot is not there, but it will be there at some point. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that I'm gonna be talking to. I don't know if it's gonna be my grandchild. I don't know. It's going to be somebody in my lifetime that's going to say, dude, you guys were nuts driving by yourself.
Right.
Like, literally, you guys. But that was a dangerous time to be alive. Like, if you think about it, what the car accidents are, like, you see the numbers.
Yeah.
It is wild to get, to drive. It is really dangerous, right?
Yeah.
By the numbers. And somebody's going to look back and say, you guys were completely nuts. Just like I look back when I started programming, there was no internet.
Or think about horses, right? You have cars with horses.
Yep.
Like, imagine going from the West Coast to the East Coast with a couple of horses. What if one dies? What if something happens with one of the legs? It's like, and the slowness and everything will be so ridiculous for their generations that we're going to be like, oh, okay.
Going from the West Coast to the East Coast, we're going and my children maybe will make it, Hey, let's just go and see if my children make it because I'm going to die in the middle of that. But yeah, no, you are absolutely right that there's a generation that's going to grow using the tools that we have today, and there's no way they're going to want to go back. We cannot go without Stack Overflow. Just think about it, all the syntax that you will have to memorize.
Yeah,
right? There's no way we're going to do that or be efficient without that. Copilot, I think, is going to spoil us the same way. And this is just a beta version. This is not. I mean, this is literally their first attempt at this thing, right? This is going to get really, really good, right? And the tech is going to get better. I'm going to know how to do better. And this is the other thing, right? So thinking about specifically getting a little bit into the machine learning part, I don't know if this is the case for Copilot, but usually as you make the domain that you're trying to work smaller, you get really, really good. So, the smaller domain, you can get way better results, right? If you think about GPT-3 is very general, right? It's mediocre at best across the board. But when you get GPT-3 and fine-tune it for one specific domain, you can get really impressive results. The same thing will apply here to Copilot. Like Copilot right now is being trained on the whole GitHub stuff, right? Now imagine Copilot for machine learning in Python, right? Or you start niching down Copilot, it's gonna get freaky good at that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the mistakes that you're seeing right now when you're trying to learn Python, those are gonna be gone basically when you just train it on that thing and you put all of that power to learn a single thing,
one single framework or library. Yeah, imagine Next.js for also the JavaScript side, right? So something that will, I can say, hey, build me a page using this and this and that, and it already knows not only JavaScript or TypeScript, it also knows the framework, the routing, the variables, and even some HTML code.
By the way, now that you mentioned that, I don't know if you've tried this, Rick, but you can literally tell Copilot right now, I want to send an SMS message using such and such framework, and it's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And, it knows a bunch of APIs, obviously, that people are using popular APIs. It knows the syntax on
I know. I did it for Firebase. Like, create this collection, store this in it, and it built it all out. It's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. It's pretty cool. Yeah. That is super powerful, man. That is super powerful.
I'm still hung up on this this idea of this generational thing because, like, philosophically, okay. So there's the Richard Stallman viewpoint of open source. There's free as in beer. There's free as there's all these different ideas of open source and things like that. But in this case, it can't be. You can't apply a philosophy of open source to this type of technology.
You mean like the code that it generates? Is that
I just everything about it from top to bottom.
Because of the economics of how much it costs to run it at this point, yes, you cannot.
It's not somebody. It's like there's the hippie version of open source who it's like, I just want to give everything should be free and I want to give it to everybody, which is fine. It's just cool. And that's somebody putting their time in and dedicating time and then giving it to the world to make it a better place. That person can't do this. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's even just corporate open source or MIT open source or Apache open source and stuff like that. So maybe if Microsoft has been, it just loves everybody and wants to open source it for some reason, but then who's going to be able to use it? Well, only people that are like Microsoft can pay to do it. So it's just, my point is, from like, if you're trying to teach kids about the importance of open source and software should be free or everything should be free and you can run it wherever you want and all that kind of stuff, that kind of conflicts with something like this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see your point. Yep.
So like a generation of kids are going to look at their parents and go, what are you talking about open source? That doesn't make any sense. You can't do this with open source. And then like, is it going to be, you know what I'm saying? It's like, is this going to actually challenge some of those concepts, or is it going to be, no, when we say open source now, only what we mean is the code that you can write. And that's it. We don't mean all of software, so no, the code editor you use, it can't be open source, but the stuff that you code should be open source. And you know what I'm saying? Like this is just a weird philosophical art.
To me, it's, if we want to put it into another context, similar to TV, where you had the open TV with the antenna and you were getting like free TV, but then who built the free quality streaming service, right? Because right now we're in the middle of all these streaming services. They run all this infrastructure. Nobody's going to do it for free. It's not one person. You might have a friend that has a Plex server and maybe he will share some of that, but it's hard to all the content and the documentaries, and there's a bunch of useful things that you can watch on TV or streaming, apart from all the other stuff that it is not. But how do you make it accessible and free? I think it's going to be similar. Like there's no, I don't want to say business model because it is open source, but there is no free version of this, as you're saying, that is just going to be out there for anybody to use or to deploy on my own dedicated machine here.
Well, the other thing is, for now, That's
the
gonna
economics
change.
can change. Yeah.
I mean, Moore's law is gonna get us there, assuming that it continues. It's gonna get us where training this is gonna be a no-brainer. I mean,
That's
again,
as soon as we get quantum computers in my office, then everything changes.
I mean, and literally, this was impossible a couple of years ago. Like nobody can do this, right? A bunch of stuff on machine learning has been around for a long time, and it only accelerated when Moore's law allowed us to actually put some of these formulas and apply them at scale.
Yeah.
But
right, I definitely see a future where we can run or we can get closer to train Codex, which is the name of this tech, Codex on a regular computer. And again, we're still far from that point, but at least it's gonna get cheaper, and more companies will be able to actually build it. Right? Maybe not myself, but the 20 million will definitely get down. We're building every single day. We're creating tech that makes these cheaper and faster.
So you're saying it becomes a commodity, and therefore it's probably going to be either free to run it on your own machine because now machines are going to be more powerful, or it's going to be so cheap that we can consider it almost free, right? Like we could get to a point where you were saying like get a Chromebook and pay $1 a month, and then you get this ID with autocomplete, like Copilot autocomplete kind of thing. So
correct. Like I don't think that Microsoft or whoever is leading this tech, let's say it's OpenAI, I don't think they can forever like their competitive advantage cannot be nobody else can run this code. Even if we open source it, nobody else can build this. I don't think that's going to be a competitive advantage forever, right? In case they want to make this commercial. Like GPT-3 is not going to be a competitive advantage just because it's 20 million to run, right? Because, obviously Google is going to do it, and Apple is going to do it, and everyone else is going to do it. If that were your competitive advantage. And the other part is those 20 million today are going to be 10 million in 6 months. And they're going to be 5 million in another 6 months because it's going to get cheaper, it's going to get faster, and it's going to be, and we're coming up with better architectures that do not need that much memory. Right. Just the whole GPT-3 was a breakthrough. The whole idea of GPT-3 was the breakthrough that it's just the transformers that made something that before it was completely impossible, the next day was possible. And we got GPT-2, I think it was the first one, or GPT, whatever it was. So it's those breakthroughs that, from day, overnight, it basically makes something like that was impossible before possible. We're not done. We're gonna keep seeing this. I'm pretty sure I can bet my house that in a year from now we're gonna laugh at how dumb this Copilot thing was, because we're gonna have Copilot 20 and it's gonna be so much better. It's definitely fun to be alive at this time. I don't know if any other time we've been in a position where we can say that confidently. Man, I got here in this country in 2009. There was no such a thing as an iPad.
Yeah, that's
now
right.
They are that was the other day. 2009 was literally 12 years ago. The iPad did not exist. When you think about it, Blackberries
were the thing.
Were that thing. Like if you were in tech, and at least the people that I knew back then when I came here, they all had Blackberries. BlackBerry World Edition, whatever. It was super fast typing with 2 fingers because they had like a little keyboard. Like a keyboard.
I could do email.
Right? They were doing emails. He gave me one. My boss back in the day gave me one. Wow, that was crazy, man. I had like a Yahoo Messenger in my BlackBerry. That was the thing. I don't know if you guys remember Yahoo Messenger.
That was before I was born.
Yeah.
Man, that was in 2009, right? I was a grown-up man back then. I wasn't a kid, right?
Yeah.
And wow, it's so fast. So yeah, it's
I'm pretty sure when people move from assembly to more advanced languages, they taught the same. But yes, every time, every leap we go forward, it's amazing. And
so, but the thing is, I think we're moving faster than before. Like, you're right? So like, if you think about it, like breakthroughs, right? If you start like plotting breakthroughs over time, I think we're getting more of them more frequently, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
See what I'm going?
Linear. It's not linear.
It's not linear. I would agree with that.
Right. Like, if you go back to, hey, we invented the telescope. Like, it took like 200 years for the next major invention. And then it was 150 years.
Right.
And then it was 100, you know? And now,
yeah.
like, it seems like it's yearly. We're getting one of these super huge breakthroughs that is changing humanity in some meaningful way, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, we were just talking about the M chips, right, on the new Macs. Imagine having a laptop with 17-hour battery 5 years ago, right? There was none.
It's just.
There was
by the
none.
way, do any of you have one?
No, I have friends that have.
Because every time, I mean, I know, and everyone says, Macs are great, but every single Apple haters, okay, they're saying that thing is just great. That thing is just unbelievable. So I haven't used one M1, and I haven't seen it like, but for Apple haters, like people that really don't like Apple, to come and say, no, that battery life is a thing, it must be mind-blowing.
Yeah,
I have heard. Go ahead, Rick.
At first, I just thought everybody was trolling on Twitter. I'm like, everybody, because it's like, it seems like I open up Twitter when it first came out, and it's like all of a sudden all these people are worshiping it, and I'm just like, is everybody just trolling? I didn't believe it, but it's continued on long enough to where I don't think it's a troll.
Yeah,
I'm in the market for. I'm in the market for one, but I want to. This is the entry level, right? I want to see what comes after, hopefully later in the year. But I have heard people that, just like you were saying, it changed my working flow. I don't have to go to Stack Overflow to look for the syntax, and I don't have to do that. The people that I have talked to said things like, well, I don't have to think about battery anymore. It's just like my phone. I open it and it's right there, and I can use it the whole day, and then it just goes away. And if I forget to charge it, no problem. The next day is going to be working too. So it's changing some of those things. And yes, it's not linear. It takes some time. But I also think that the world and the news and everything was moving slower. So it kind of like, from a feeling perspective, every innovation has felt the same. It's like, oh, what a great time to be alive, because now we have this and we have that. And from a feeling, I think it's about the same. I remember seeing the first Teslas and all of that, and it was also like, what do you mean it doesn't, like, it has a frunk? What, a trunk on the front? So all of that thing, now it's like, okay, a lot of cars have it, right? And maybe the next big truth. So it is.
You become numb. That's what's happening. You become numb.
You don't notice it. So I was talking to my cousin Matt a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this, but we weren't talking about it in light of computers. We were talking about in light of aerospace, and how in a short period of time, aerospace just exploded. And there's a lot of analogies you can make with the tech space, what's going on now. Anyway, he had mentioned this crazy story. There was a guy that was in the theater and watched Lincoln get assassinated. He died the day before Sputnik went around the Earth. So, like, if you think about all the crazy innovation that happened in his life in such a short period, even the Wright brothers created an airplane, and they got to see jet engines and rockets, and in a short amount of time, just insane amount of innovation.
There's something that happens that I think is called the Kaggle phenomenon. I don't remember how it's called, but this is the idea, right? So you guys know what Kaggle is? It's this website where you do machine learning competitions, right? So
Oh
companies
yeah,
call it- like, you know, like the CLO competition.
I thought you were talking about
$1
some
million.
philosophy or psychology
No,
thing or something.
no.
Yeah.
Our website, right?
Yeah.
So the idea here is that you get these competitions where, let's say everyone, you know, a lot of people are trying to compete, and they can. It's really hard to break through. Let's say 60% accuracy. Okay, and no, everyone has spent a long time at 60% accuracy. That's sort of like the ceiling, and all of a sudden, somebody breaks that number. Somebody gets it to 80%, and immediately, without nobody seeing the answer that got to 80%, immediately people start hitting 80%. It's like the understanding that it's possible.
Yeah.
Now that somebody did it, now I know it's possible. You get this massive innovation, like ideas start happening somehow, and you can sort of like extrapolate that to what happens here, right? Like you get SpaceX doing what they're doing, and all of a sudden you get Blue Origin, and you get the other company, and you get a massive influx of companies that are also doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, Elon Musk goes, oh, we can make a spacesuit that doesn't cost $1 billion, and everybody goes, oh, we should make a cheap spacesuit, and all of a sudden you get really great spacesuits everywhere.
Right. It's like nobody thought about that before. Like it just only takes one person to do something that, you know, in retrospect is like maybe stupid or obvious, and then all of a sudden you get a massive influence. It's super cool, you know, to watch.
And the rest, the things that are behind those things, abilitying that becomes more of a business in a new landscape. Like I remember hearing a podcast about a company that its own work is launchpads. So the launchpad management. So now it is a business by itself where, I don't know, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it wasn't a thing.
I've listened to this podcast. The guy's in Alaska, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was a great podcast. Yeah.
It was very, very interesting to know, like, oh, okay, so now this guy has a company of something that couldn't have even been a company like 7 years ago, but he was the first one building Launchpad with SpaceX, and then he went and did his own, and now he is helping other companies.
Yeah.
And now companies don't have to research all of this, and I think that is probably the some of the value or the in between lines that I see Elon Musk saying, like, hey, focus on the production, not on the final product. Focus on how to make things on the things that make the actual products, because those are the things that are going to matter. And if you figure out a better way to make, I don't know, doors for electric cars, if there is anything unique about them, then you now have like 20 different companies.
Yeah.
To sell
it's crazy. You mentioned something that I remember this conversation with my wife. Like, you know, we all come from a school where you grow to be an engineer, you grow to be a doctor, right? You grow to be, you know, a scientist, a lawyer. Think about 20 years from now, the amount of jobs that did not exist. Like now you grow to be a YouTuber. That is a serious thing.
Right.
An influencer.
I know we love about it. An influencer.
Yeah.
A TikToker. I don't know how you call it. People from TikTok.
Those,
like, I mean, just think about this for a second, okay? Just pick somebody from Hollywood, whoever, I don't know, Brad Pitt, whoever, Angelina Jolie, whoever, okay? Tell me how many followers they have across platforms. And I'm going to show you somebody from TikTok, John Doe, that doubles that number. Like the amount of money people are making on those platforms is not even funny. Like we're talking about numbers that nobody in Hollywood has access to. Like I've heard about, hey, I can talk about that company on my YouTube video is $100,000 for maybe 10 seconds, me mentioning the company. We're talking about numbers that are not even funny, right?
So it's crazy.
Think about that.
So here's the question I have then, because we're talking about technology and Copilot. So technology makes that happen, right? It unlocks a whole bucket of new jobs and new ways to make money. Is Copilot a technology that does that or can do that?
I'm gonna be a Copilot-er. I'm gonna be the first one.
I think
it's
it's great to think about what is the, like, if you get to zoom out, what would be the impact that Copilot is going to have, right? So what's Copilot going to? So obviously we agree that Copilot makes the people who know how to develop, it makes it more efficient, makes it faster.
10x developer, right? That concept of a 10x.
Right. It's having an assistant that's doing a lot of the boring stuff for you, that therefore is freeing you to focus on what really matters, right? Which is the creativity that Copilot cannot bring to the table, right? It's like, sorting a list. Who cares, right? Just sort the list for me. Let me think about how do I architect this solution? How do I make it better? How do I make it more testable? Whatever it is. So therefore, you can definitely extrapolate that and say, thanks to Copilot, it's going to make innovation faster, for sure. It's going to make coming up with great ideas more likely or faster. It's going to take less time to get from point A to point B. Point B being having that, getting to the International Space Station 5 years before we would have, just without Copilot, if that makes sense. I think it's definitely a plus. For sure.
Right. Yeah, because obviously in the current iteration, it's for people who know how to code. But the ramifications are: is there a job that opens up that's like an application developer that just uses his
Squarespace?
Right.
I remember back in the day, I used to make money by taking PSD files, Photoshop files, and turning them into HTML. To build very simple websites. There was a lot of money to be made back then.
Right.
That's not a business anymore, right? You get these Squarespace and Wix and all of these websites that generate an entire full website for a company. So yeah, I understand, like, not everyone needs one of those, but those who need one of those, they don't have to pay for a PSD to be turned into HTML and JavaScript anymore. They just go there, click a couple buttons, pick a template, select the color, upload a logo. That's it. They're in business.
$5 a month, right? That's it.
That is correct. That's exactly right. So that created, and by the way, there are entire agencies that the only thing they do is that for clients.
Right.
So how many jobs are those websites creating? Like Shopify, you get the Shopify partners. Yesterday I was reading, I think her name is Kelly. I don't remember, but I follow her on Twitter. And her agency for the first year made $1 million. They are Shopify partners. That's all they do, right? Manage Shopify for clients. They made $1 million this year. Small agency, which is great for her.
So you can see probably a consulting company where they will teach you how to build software, or they will ramp up your development teams in things like Copilot and things like that, how to take the most out of it, how to, like, what are things are good and stuff like that. I could definitely see a business around that, right? You're paying for Copilot. We're going to teach you how to do it right. We're either bringing older developers, or how do you onboard new talent, right? That already knows Copilot, but how do you merge it into an enterprise flow? Somebody will pay for it, right?
So I think that makes sense as like an intermediate thing, but my head's going to something different, where I'm a financial planner and I'm in a hedge fund and I need to make some models based on different things. And so right now what they do is they're spreadsheet junkies, and they do a bunch of stuff, and they'll probably have some coders that do some Python things. But just take the coders out of it, because Copilot can do it. And you just say, I need to build a model off of these numbers with this portfolio with this whatever, blah, 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 and it just goes and does it. Like, is it something that creates jobs, or is it just it removes the middleman and it just enables the actual end business person or the creative person?
Both.
Yeah. So for developers, it's going to raise the bar. Like when I say raise the bar, is that it's, like right now, I don't know how to put this in a way that's, I don't think it's going to take our jobs or anything like that. It's just going to make us more productive. We're going to start higher in the food chain, right? We're going to come higher. That's our door. Like everything here is going to get solved for us. Like we won't care about this. That's what I think, right?
A developer interview question is reverse a string, right? What if I can just tell Copilot to reverse a string? That's it, right? So it's going to raise the bar of those kind of interviews. And not precisely, there are going to be developers that are going to be left out of a job if they don't learn Copilot or expand their knowledge. I would say yes, but I don't think Copilot is the trigger of that. I think we all, as technical people, understand that you got to keep going, or otherwise you're going to be stuck in a 20-year-old job with the same legacy applications, hoping that they will never rebuild it.
Yeah, but I see where you're going, Rick. Like right now, there's something that's called AutoML. Okay, so AutoML, the idea is you feed it data, and AutoML is gonna find a model that solves the objective that you have. Okay, now there are limitations for AutoML, right? That need a developer. So how about if those limitations, instead of needing a developer, you can automate that. So now AutoML does the thing that it does using some sort of tech. It's definitely not what Copilot is doing.
Right.
Now, when my head goes is, okay, so the limitation for AutoML is that it doesn't know how to code. So how about if you bring this tech here that knows how to code and you put it together? Would that lift the limitation that AutoML has? Right. And the answer is yes. How soon we're going to get there, I'm not sure. But I can definitely see for certain use cases that being a possibility. Like I mean, you have to watch the videos of not Copilot, but Codex thing that they release and how they, those are really, really impressive. Like, hey, I want to do this and do that and send the emails and type in the email such and such. Send the email to my entire contact list. Boom, boom, boom. Like, forget about the code. They're showing how it types the code, but they just go and run the code.
Right. Exactly.
So let's keep the code. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's a computer, and you're telling the computer what you want to get done, and the computer is doing it for you. Like, the code is the middle thing. Like, nobody cares at the end, right? So I can see that person saying, I want a model that does this and that and that, and get the results, sort them by these criteria, and then send an email to the top 10 people from that list. Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And that getting
done. And even more detailed, because in that some of those Codex examples, you're asking what the code does, and it explains it. Like that data frame explanation is really cool. So if, let's say you, by natural code generation, NCG, we got to keep the brand going on.
Yeah.
But through that, you're like, again, I'll use my hedge fund example again. I'm trying to manage this portfolio and do projections, and I tell it to build a model, and I ask, why did it perform this way? Why did I get a drop off here? And if it could explain that,
that would
be good. The other use case is in my current world, I guess, Kubernetes and container orchestration. I have a bunch of repositories, and I can just tell Copilot, hey, build me an operator that deploys all of this in a Kubernetes cluster, right? And it will know, like, oh, I'm grabbing code from this organization or these repositories. This is a React one. I'm going to write the code to deploy it and to auto-scale it. I know how much memory is going to need, and I can code those limits in, and I can put auto-scalers in, and just build your whole infrastructure automatically by code, right? And then deploy it. Right. And then, hey, give me a new environment of this application with this limit resources and stuff like that. So I can definitely see some of that. Right now, it's being done in Go with operators. That's the name of the framework, right? Like Helm, and that can be improved a lot because I don't think there is a lot of developers, and I don't think it's rocket science either. Like it's like deployment, backups, upgrades, downgrades, things like that.
I feel like that's a solvable problem, to be honest with you. I feel like a lot of the infrastructure that powers some of the stuff that we're deploying today could be automated. I don't want to say easily, because it's sort of like, I feel like I'm oversimplifying a problem. Somebody else would have done it if it was that easy, obviously. But there are certain, like, for example, right now, Google Cloud gives you suggestions about your, hey, you're running this thing on this infrastructure, and I think you're spending too much money because you're not using that much CPU. Like, you can definitely, like, they give you recommendations on how. So the same way they're doing that, they could just analyze your code and decide, hey, based on what I've seen here, I think this is the type of infrastructure that you're going to need. And by the way, it's not that I'm going to type the code so you can deploy it. It's that just give me that thing and I'm going to deploy it, and you don't even care how I'm going to deploy it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the code says.
That is totally possible.
That would be super freaky cool.
Yeah, I'm not part of that product, but I know IBM has AI Ops or Watson AI Ops, and it basically is what you're saying, right? It not only it gives you recommendations, it will know if something goes down, it will identify the root cause, it will give you even some, if you have scripts to restart services or redeploy and stuff like that, it will automatically trigger them. And like, there are things going on in that area already. But the one thing that I haven't seen is, like, I have a bunch of repositories and it's a set of microservices, or a monolithic repository with a bunch of microservices and a couple of front ends and stuff like that. The code that needs to be generated to deploy, that can be a good use case for something like Copilot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not, you don't have to architect it. You just have to detect what it is. And if it's a front end, then I got to go and get some certificates. And if I have a known CA, then it's going to be my certificates, or let's encrypt and HTTPS enable, and all of that. All of that is possible, and it can be done in the short term, right? So that's a good use case, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I do a lot of cloud formation, and it's painful. It's painful. And there is a lot of knowledge that is, it's not only painful because you're typing YAML, but it's also, there is a lot of knowledge. Like, for example, if you want to create, I don't know, I've done a lot with SageMaker, right? And you have to remember or know things that are not obvious to you. Like, I'm creating this instance, but you have to know that it has to be attached to a VPN. And therefore, there has to be a security group. And therefore, there has to be like a subnet. So this stuff that is very technical, that you, like, if you do DevOps, you know that, but for a developer, you don't know. And the solution cannot be go and hire a DevOps person, right? That's not the optimal solution. We all know that. The solution is, let me get this done for you. What do you want to do? Deploy a freaking instance? There are 27 things that you have to do, but you don't have to think about them. Let me do them for you. Here it. So there's we're gonna get there, definitely. That's super exciting.
Yeah,
super exciting stuff.
All right, so I think we've beat the horse. It's dead. But I mean, I appreciate you coming on, Santiago, and
sure.
I'm really excited about this Copilot stuff. And anyway, any closing comments? Anything from Cesar, Santiago, before we end it?
I mean, if you don't know what we're talking about, you just have to go and sign up. That's it. It's free beta. It's gonna get. You're gonna get. I mean, I guess there is a line.
Just ping Nat Friedman, right? That's what we learned.
That's what we learned.
Make a funny tweet. Yeah. Thank you, Santiago, for coming over. This is definitely a good circle back on what Rick has learned on Python, and you have a lot more experience. It was good to see those examples as well. Obviously, there are gaps, and but I'm gonna send my next Python project to Rick and see if he can build it.
Here's a question. Here's a question I have. Should I continue learning Python, Santiago? I know what your answer is going to be based on your Twitter account, but should I continue?
Okay, so I mean, I think Python rules, man. I don't know. I mean, I learned Python in 2014. I started with Python, so I was a Java person, right? And with Google Cloud, I don't know if you remember App Engine at the beginning. You know, okay, so I was doing Java, and the startup time was killing me because it had to load all of this stuff, and I was using Spring, and it was super heavy. So yeah, we're doing this automatic scaling, but it's gonna take half an hour to spin up another instance. And then I read that Python, the startup time was really quick. So I said, okay, so I have to learn this thing. And I started, never looked back. I have never coded on anything other than Python from that point on. I think it's great. People say it's slow. It's not my problem. I don't use it for anything that has to be fast, right? The stuff that I do that has to be fast, it gets compiled in C and runs on GPUs. Faster than that, there's nothing. So I really don't have that problem. So yeah, you should learn Python for sure.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. We hope to have you back soon. We'll see what else we can bring, and this was definitely fun. Thank you, Rick, as well.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me.